You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 27th of August 2026 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting to you live from Studio 1 here at Midori House in London. I'm Georgina Godwin. Coming up on today's programme...
This must remain the case. We want to remain a car-making country. We want to remain a place of auto production. We want to remain a place for suppliers.
German State Premier Olaf Lief there amid a high-stakes face-off between the German car maker Volkswagen and the unions, as plans are revealed to cut thousands of jobs and potentially shut down some plants. We'll have a roundup of business news, including the latest from Nvidia. We'll look ahead to this evening's new edition of The Urbanist, which reveals how New York's Fifth Avenue is getting a long overdue facelift. And Fernando Augusto Pacheco joins me for the Global Countdown. Faye, what are you featuring today?
Hello, Georgina. Today I'll give you a preview of Monocle Radio's playlist for September.
Exciting stuff, and I'm very much looking forward to a couple of Egyptian things, I think, that are on there. So all of that coming up right here on The Briefing with me, Georgina Godwin. Oliver Blume, the CEO of Volkswagen, is facing an enormous backlash over his plans to cut up to 50,000 workers, which could also possibly close German car-making plants. We're joined now by Carsten Brzezinski, who's global head of macro at ING Research in Frankfurt, and by Jordan Dahl, senior reporter for Politico in Brussels. Carsten, why does Blume believe that all these job cuts are necessary?
Well, because Volkswagen, as the entire German or European automotive sector, is having a severe problem and having a severe cost problem. So he is hoping that by cutting costs, this would be enough to really face a severe Chinese competition. In my view, a bit short-sighted, but obviously we know this from other companies. As soon as you get under pressure, the first instinct is always to try to reduce costs, and that is unfortunately very often jobs.
So what are the scale of these cuts?
Well, Volkswagen has 660,000 employees across the globe. We're now talking about new job cuts of some 60,000 jobs, but previously we already had an announced 50,000 job losses. So we're really talking here like 15% of the entire labor force of Volkswagen. And what is now new, and I think which also signals the severity of Volkswagen's problem, is that many of these job cuts could happen in Germany. Plus, as you also mentioned, it would be for the first time in Volkswagen's history that plants in Germany will be closed down.
Jordan, if we could bring you in, you're in Brussels now, but you used to live in Beijing and you're obviously very familiar with the market there. Is this about Chinese competition?
Absolutely. Volkswagen has two problems. One, China is their largest market and they are losing market share there very quickly. It peaked in 2019, but with the shift to EVs, they fell behind. And now you have all of these other Chinese brands that are cheaper, have better technology, and that the consumers just like better. But that loss then is now impacting the German plants because all of that income was helping to subsidize the German plants. So, and on top of that, you have the Chinese now coming to Europe.
Carsten, how have the unions reacted to the idea of these cuts?
Well, as expected, not very happy, to say the least, very, very aggressively. And I think to understand that, you need to know that, unions in general, and particularly with Volkswagen, are very strong, are very powerful. And the union's leader, at Volkswagen already said that this was unacceptable, that there would be big protests against it, and this is actually what is currently happening. So we have the CEO who's currently touring the different plants in Germany to talk to the employees there, because nothing has been cast in stone so far. There is no big master plan on paper yet. It is really something that we leaked to the media, was announced, or our intentions, but this is now a big negotiation between the board, between the leadership of Volkswagen, the Workers' Council, the unions, and to some extent also the government of the regional state Lower Saxony, which also holds stakes in Volkswagen.
Well, let's talk about the government. Jordan, how are German politicians reacting to this?
With a lot of hand-wringing. There is a great deal of fear that the far right, which is already gaining in the polls and getting in popularity, that they could be seizing on these layoffs to gain more voters, and we have seen that happen to an extent. But they're also worried about the broader industrial question of will there be enough jobs, and are these going to be enough good-paying jobs? So the government is very concerned. You had Olaf Leis at the top of the broadcast, and he sits on the board, as Carsten mentioned, for Volkswagen, and he's been very vocal that in no way will the politicians accept these layoffs. So they are pushing back quite hard on it.
So Carsten, could there be a government rescue plan, and how might this affect the German economy overall?
Well, I think the temptation, of course, is there that there might be some kind of rescue plan from the government, but how would this look like? Well, this could be subsidies. This could be also, and we had this in the past, offering some kind of tax rebates if you buy electric vehicle. You could even think in this bigger European scheme of, well, maybe there could be some subsidies for buy German or buy European. I don't know whether this is actually legally possible, but these are steps that are possible. But in any case, this would not solve, as Jordan rightly points out, Volkswagen's problem in China. That because the German government can do whatever it wants, but the market in China remains so severely competitive. So, which means you can only buy some time maybe for Volkswagen, but the innovation needs to come from Volkswagen, from the European automotive sector in general itself.
Let's talk about the European automotive sector, because Jordan, from where you sit in Brussels, is this a Europe-wide challenge?
It is, yes. And it's a challenge that the European Commission is aware of and trying to tackle. There is multiple legislation coming out of Brussels that would institute buy European requirements and force joint ventures similar to what China enacted in the 80s that helped bring about the car industry in general in China. And it's a big political debate. You're going to see Germany and France fighting one another. But German leaders are starting to come around to the idea. And even Volkswagen CEO Blume mentioned that the industry is in favor and does need made in Europe requirements to help stop some of this bleeding.
Jordan, thank you very much indeed. That's Jordan Dahl, senior reporter for Politico in Brussels, and Carsten Brzeski, global head of macro at ING Research in Frankfurt. Thank you both for joining us. Now, here's Laura Kramer in our Zurich headquarters with the day's other news.
Thanks, Georgina. At least 270 people are dead after a massive flash flood hit the Nepal-Tibet border, wiping out entire villages on Wednesday. Authorities say nearly 1,500 people are still missing, the majority of them tourists. Experts warn there's a risk of second and third waves today or tomorrow, complicating rescue efforts. The U.S. tech giant Meta has agreed to implement a host of changes to their social media platforms to protect children. It follows a landmark €15 billion settlement to resolve claims that Facebook and Instagram harmed minors. For now, the new rules will only apply to U.S. users and include time limits and a midnight curfew for the apps. And North Korea has criticized potential U.S. missile sales to South Korea, vowing to make a powerful response to what it described as hostile acts. Earlier, Washington had approved a potential sale of tactile missiles and related equipment to Seoul to help improve its air defense capability and deter aggression in the region. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you in London, Georgina.
Thank you, Laura. Now let's cross to Bloomberg's Ewan Potts for the latest business news. Ewan, results from the world's most valuable company today. What have we heard from NVIDIA?
Yeah, hello, Georgina. A lot of relief in markets today. Nvidia is such an important company that its earnings report is seen as a macro event for markets and for investors around the world. Just a reminder of the size of this company. It is worth $5 trillion. To put that in a bit of context, the FTSE 100, the 100 biggest companies on the London Stock Exchange in total are worth $3.75 trillion. So Nvidia is pretty large, let's put it that way. The company makes the chips that are powering the AI build-out, all those data centers popping up around the world. They are filled primarily with Nvidia chips. They're really the market leaders when it comes to these most sophisticated chips. The company says that revenue in the current period will be pretty much double what it was a year ago, in the region of $108 billion. And plenty of focus on the chip giant's forecast looking ahead. Investors laser focused on whether this AI boom still has more road to run. And on that, the company said that revenue will grow about 70% over the next year. Bit of concern about the margin because Nvidia using memory chips, and the prices of memory chips have been absolutely rocketing over the past year. But its margin still in the region of 70 to 72%. A bullish Jensen Huang, the Nvidia CEO, says that demand is only accelerating. And he says that the AI infrastructure build-out is, quote, at full steam. And the company's shares gaining in pre-market trade today.
Right, so AI build-out at full steam, but there are some signs today that the software industry may not be under as much threat from AI as initially feared.
Yeah, there's been a big sell-off in software stocks over the past year. It's been nicknamed the SaaSpocalypse, SaaS being software as a service. A lot of concern that AI is going to eat the lunch of software companies, and people will go straight to their AI chatbot and not bother logging into their software, and that will put the whole industry under pressure. But shares have been generally regaining some of their losses over the past few months, and two sets of earnings today also playing into that narrative. We had results from Salesforce, which is the world's most important provider of CRM software, customer relations management. So if you're in a company dealing with your customers, you may well log into Salesforce. And that company delivered decent earnings. It's also got a partnership with the company behind Claude. Anthropic is going to integrate Salesforce software is going to be integrated into the Claude chatbot. So investors pretty happy about that. And we also had numbers from CrowdStrike, which is a big provider of cybersecurity software, and it says that AI is also proving a tailwind for it. Lots of worries that AI is going to go off on a tangent and start hacking into systems, and that is proving to be a positive for makers of cybersecurity software.
Ewan, thank you very much indeed. That's Ewan Potts from Bloomberg there. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Everyone's heard of New York's Fifth Avenue, but it's been ignored by the authorities for 200 years. Now, however, the so-called monument to capitalism is receiving some love. This is a subject we focused on in the recent edition of The Urbanist, to be broadcast for the first time this evening. The presenter of that show, Monocle's editor-in-chief, Andrew Tuck, joins me now. Andrew, thanks. It's an incredibly busy day. You've got Quality of Life coming up and everything is happening, right?
This is someone who's bad at looking at their electronic diary, so I did see three things piled on top of each other at the same time, but that's okay. That's okay. Here we are.
Well, we've managed to grab you and force you into the studio to tell us why Fifth Avenue, such an important retail hub, was ignored by city officials for so long.
Well, Fifth Avenue, this vast kilometres long road that runs through Manhattan, is such a powerhouse for economic drivers, especially for the luxury brands, especially as you go uptown. But what's interesting is, that everyone's kind of done their own thing a little bit. They haven't really thought much about the public realm. And look, in every capital city around the world, in every leading city such as New York, this debate about how much space should be given to pedestrians. Do people want to be able to linger more than they did in the past? How do you put in, more kiosks, more green space? That's a question that they're finally looking at in New York. They're still in the pre-stage, as it were, but they have a vast amount of money potentially lined up to change Fifth Avenue.
And what sort of changes are they thinking of making?
Well, these are the elements I'm hinting at. So the same as you're seeing here in London, the question about can they remove some of the traffic, for example, from Fifth Avenue? They want to give over more pavement to the pedestrians. Now, as someone who's been to Fifth Avenue, you'll probably know that those avenues the pavements are pretty wide anyway. But it's also making the pavements more interesting so that there's very little planting on those streets. There's very few places where you can stop and linger. Now, what's interesting is that the luxury brands, they're keen also to see some change. They're determined to maintain high footfall because the rents that they pay for those units are extraordinary. It's some of the most expensive real estate in the world. And they expect something from the city in return for being there, being present, pulling in tourists. And this is the conversation that has begun now in New York.
So who's leading it?
Well, one of the people we interviewed for this is called Madeleine Wills, and she's the CEO of the Future of Fifth Committee, and a kind of amazing woman. She was involved, for example, after 9/11. She was one of the people as a community organizer who got involved very quickly and soon had huge authority on how they rebuilt the World Trade Center, and also how they would use retail there as well to reignite interest in the area and re-engineer it in a way so that it wasn't just a CBD, a commercial district, a financial district, that it would bring in new audiences. So she's good at hustling the mayor. She's good at corralling people to kind of get things done in a way that she's one of those figures I don't think you would find in a European city, because everything kind of sits, with the city councillors or with one or two kind of organisations for retailers. She's somebody who is a convener of conversations, and she's done it for so long that people respect her opinion, and she can get stuff done. And she's got the skills of a diplomat, because she needs to be speaking to people now on the left who are in government in Manhattan, in New York, who may not care that much really at first glance what the luxury brands are doing. But she also has to bring along the brands, the people who live in these neighbourhoods as well, because they're not just purely retail strips. I began by asking her that question about Mayor Mamdani because suddenly she was planning away what would happen to the city, and then she realises she had an elected leader of the city who a socialist and who's somebody who might find it difficult to speak to his audience to say, look, I'm going to spend time and effort on making this streetscape better for all of these luxury brands. So she was nervous, and this is what she had to say.
It was a little worrisome when he was elected in terms of how he would react to a project like this. Certainly not something on his top 10 list, I would say. But we made a very good case for how much money Fifth Avenue brings into the city. Fifth Avenue brings in $1.53 billion in property taxes a year. We have 203,000 direct jobs and about 336,000 jobs altogether. The blue-collar jobs on Fifth Avenue retail, for instance, makes an average of $98,000 a year, which is about 33% more than the rest of the city. So I think he realized that Fifth Avenue is a big tax generator for him and that we need to protect it. So the mayor actually is on board with this project. We are moving forward, and, we're back in design.
So that's Madeleine Wills, who's the CEO of the Future of Fifth Committee. Very interesting. And of course, that you go into that in much more depth on the show, on The Urbanist tonight. But of course, when you start tinkering with big infrastructure projects like this, it is going to have an effect on public transport. And Mamdani, of course, has this huge push on the buses. I understand you also went into that.
Yeah, so we've been looking in depth at what's happening in New York. And also on the show, we speak to New York's Department of Transport Commissioner, a gentleman called Mike Flynn. And he began to explain to us a little bit about why the plan for buses under Mamdani is so different. Perhaps we should hear that clip first, and then we can pick up off that.
I think there's probably three things. It's the scale and ambition of the plan. It's the resources that have been put behind the plan. And it's the level of close collaboration between the agencies that's going to be necessary to implement the plan. Because you're right, there's been a series of plans and visions and strategies over the years, and yet we haven't seen a huge improvement in bus speeds. It's a really big plan. I think at this scale, we will actually see the changes. And part of that is also the level of improvement, right? We're aiming for at least 20% speed improvement on these 50 priority corridors in the plan. The other aspect of the ambition is that we're laying out the next generation of bus rapid transit in New York City. That's something that really hasn't been a part of any of the previous plans.
He keeps saying the word plan. It's not actually an action yet, is it?
No. And we should say that the Fifth Avenue project is also kind of a plan at the moment. But we did see under previous mayors, like under Bloomberg, for example, once you've got consensus and once you've got ambition, New York is a place where you can deliver changes quite quickly. And if you look at what happened under Bloomberg, the institution of cycling as a way of getting around the city, the looking at what happened on the East River and on the Hudson and using the waterways in more interesting ways, I think this bus proposal will happen. Buses in some cities are a slower way to get around, but when you have good straight avenues as you have in New York, you can move rapidly. And while the subway system in New York is extensive and covers most areas, there are many, many people who come to work in the city who are dependent on buses for getting around and getting home late at night. So this is an affordable method of extending your transport network using buses. And buses have become something of a saviour in many cities around the world, not only in developed places like New York, but in places like Brazil, where they were pioneers actually in using bus rapid transit to get people to where they need to go.
And finally, Andrew, how much will these changes, both to Fifth Avenue and the bus network, how much will they alter the character of New York City?
Well, here we're talking about two projects which, we've focused a little bit on Manhattan in the show, but these are important changes for the whole city. I think one of those figures that Madeline gave there, that the average worker on Fifth Avenue is taking home $98,000. And we're talking about people who are blue-collar workers, working in shops as shop assistants, working in restaurants. You see there the significance of these projects. And I think Mamdani has a real opportunity because he has an ability here to talk to every constituency and bring them along on this journey. Why would luxury brands be nervous about any of the changes he's delivering if it protects their workers, lets them get to the office easily, lets them get to their job on the shop floor more easily? So I think that it will deliver change not only for the bits that the tourists tend to see or that outsiders tend to see when they go to New York, but whether you live in Brooklyn or the Bronx, it's going to impact the person who lives next door to you and their communities as well. It could be a moment of real change.
Andrew, I'm going to go and let you attend to your overstacked diary. So thank you very much indeed. That's Andrew Tuck, Monocle's editor-in-chief, who's also the host of The Urbanist. And the new episode of the show, all about Fifth Avenue, is out at 2000 London time tonight on Monocle Radio. You're listening to The Briefing. It's Thursday, so it's time for the Global Countdown with our senior correspondent, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. Now, I've got to tell you that he kind of slunk in with the swinging hips, and so you're feeling pretty foxy today, Fernando.
I am very foxy, and I have 5 foxy tracks for you. So can I say that? Foxy tracks?
Absolutely.
And, Georgina, it's getting cold, autumn's coming, I've done my summer playlist. I've done 2 of them, actually. But do not worry. There's still plenty of good music in autumn and September. Good music when you're back to work, back to school, whatever. And I hope you like my choices.
Well, I'm very puzzled by the first track we're going to hear, because it comes from a group that have form for not singing, if you like.
I like some mild controversies time to time. And also on the Monocle Radio of course, we play mainly new tracks. Of course, I think it's about 80% of what we play, but we do like some throwbacks. And this one I know is going to be controversial, but this song in particular is having a moment. One of the reasons I was inspired for the latest Saint Laurent campaign, they play this song in the background, and it's been the song for many series. So yes, Milli Vanilli, there's plenty of controversies with the group.
They were accused of not actually singing.
Yes.
That's it, yeah.
But then they defended because it was more a project that was started up in Munich. So it was a little bit about imagery, not necessarily just the music itself. But Georgina, one thing I'll tell you, I agree about the controversies. Maybe it's not for everyone, but there's been a revival. And I have to say, the song is good. I'm not sure exactly if they are singing or not, but what a song. Shall we start to number 5? A little clip of Milli Vanilli, Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You.
I'm gonna miss you, all the love I feel for you. Nothing could make me change my point of view. Oh girl, I'm gonna miss you, baby.
Getting all the love I feel for you could make you change your point.
I was having a moment here.
You certainly were. I mean, one of the reasons that they say that they didn't sing was that they didn't have the language skills, that the songs were in English and they spoke German, and it just...
I can relate to that, but listen, could be maybe a choice. Maybe it might stay for a month in the playlist. Maybe I have to drop it. Sometimes when I go to the Monocle Cafe and I listen to the radio, it's like, oh, this song actually works. And then I might listen to it, it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Maybe shouldn't be A-listed. But I love that song. I just closed my eyes and I was dancing a little bit in the studio.
I could see.
Sorry.
Right, who is Ana Mena?
We're back to normal now. Ana Mena is one of the Spanish queens of pop. She's great. She is one of my favorite names in Spain, and she has a song with Lola Indigo, who is perhaps best known as a dancer as well. If you have to look at the video, they dance very well, but I think the song is great electropop. I mean, that's typical Monocle Radio fodder for you. Let's have a listen to Ana Mena and Lola Indigo, Patitoa. And I would recommend our listeners as well to have a look at the Spanish charts. So much good stuff coming from there. Of course, the Rosalía, but we also have Aitana, and Ana Mena is a great example of that as well.
I'm very excited about now going to Egypt because of karaoke or karaoke. How would you pronounce it?
Well, I would say karaoke. They are kind of a rock pop band from Egypt, and I am in my Egyptian phase at the moment. I've just mentioned Spanish charts, but if I dare to say, the Egyptian charts are even more exciting. We have, of course, Too Late on the playlist, the masked musician from Egypt. We have many others as well. But karaoke is excellent, and they have a new album out in the last weeks called Supernova. It's interesting because the main theme of this album is millennial disillusionment. So there is some kind of sadness to it, but with some synths underneath, which is completely fine.
Because, I think it kind of came to prominence during that whole Egyptian spring, if you like. And I guess that's what they're talking about with disillusionment. It did all seem so hopeful at one point, and now their generation is, it hasn't delivered.
And they made an album out of it. So they're not scared to be political. And that's the exciting thing about the Egyptian music scene. You can kind of be open and talk about certain themes that maybe other countries in the region, maybe you could not. But let's see if you're a fan of karaoke. This song is called Nessina, which means we forgot.
I love it.
It's quite touching, actually. And I did say that I'm in my Egyptian phase. The second one, she is not from Egypt, although her father is, and her mother is from Ethiopia. But she was born in Saudi Arabia, but she's British now. She's a British singer. It's Aliwia. She is fantastic. And the name of the song is Cairo FM. And the reason for that, because this song is heavily influenced by Habibi funk, so sounds from the region in the 80s. So there's a little bit of funk, a little bit of disco, but lots of Arab sounds to it. It's a cool song. Maybe this one should be for the dance floor as well. Maybe we're going to dance here in the studio, Georgina. Aliwia with Cairo FM.
If the world was mine, I dream that I meet. I'ma bring that bitch to flourish. I'ma get that bitch to courage. With a dream that I meet. I'ma bring that bitch to flourish. I'ma get that bitch some courage.
So Egypt is heavily on my radar. I'm a little bit like this with music. Sometimes I'm looking at the Scandis. Shall we go to Sweden? Then South Korea, Brazil. But now I think my love is in that region.
You're in your Egyptian phase.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going actually to Cairo in September.
Are you?
On
Well,
holiday.
this is why then.
That's why. I mean, see, it's been so much in my head that I said, you know what, I have to book 5 days in Cairo.
But I know what will happen, and this is great. You're going to get hold of some of those artists, aren't you? And you'll be interviewing them.
I've been trying, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's going to be kind of holiday/work, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, our final one.
It's an optimistic one. So Leon Bridges, of course, his voice is fantastic. He has a new album out next month, and it's called Happiness Anytime. So it is a very sunny, breezy, optimistic album produced by the members of Jungle, the British band. And this is one of the first singles. I love it. I think it's going to be a great addition to the playlist. By the way, all of those tracks will be added and starting playing next week here on Monocle Radio. This is Leon Bridges with Your Love is Electric.
Hidden in pain, like fire and thunder, we'll do it again. She left all that jewelry on my dresser.
That makes me feel good already.
It's lovely. Your love is electric, part of your eclectic choices.
Quite eclectic. I'm sorry about Milli Vanilli. It was one of those random moments. I saw the Saint Laurent campaign and I was like, maybe we do need a little bit of Milli Vanilli, even if it's just for a month, just for fun,
Fernando, thank you so much. And as you say, those will all be on rotation on our playlist from next week. And that's all we have time for on this edition of The Briefing, which was produced by Chris Chermak. Our researcher was Kelly Martin and our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. And The Briefing's back tomorrow at the same time. I'm Georgina Godwin. Thanks for listening.